What if I told you some of the world's most dangerous killers weren't abused, neglected, or broken as children? They had loving parents, stable homes, normal lives, no warning signs, no obvious trauma, and yet they became monsters. Tonight, we're uncovering one of the most disturbing truths in criminal psychology: how someone can come from a good home and still become a serial killer. For years, people believed one thing: serial killers are created by trauma, bad childhood, abuse, violence. But that theory doesn't always hold up, because some killers had none of that. They grew up in safe neighborhoods, supportive families. Some were even described as perfect children. So what went wrong? Take Ted Bundy. On the surface, Bundy had everything: a stable upbringing. He was educated, intelligent, even charismatic. Friends described him as polite. Women trusted him. But behind that charm was something deeply disturbing. Bundy didn't kill out of rage or revenge. He killed for control, power, fantasy, which raises a chilling question. If his environment wasn't broken, was something inside him broken instead? Then there's Dennis Rader, a family man, a church leader, a father. By all appearances, normal, but secretly, he lived a second life as the BTK Killer: bind, torture, kill. For decades, he hid in plain sight. No abusive childhood, no chaos at home, just a man with dark compulsions that no one saw coming. So how does this happen? Psychologists point to something deeper than upbringing. Psychopathy. You are who your environment makes you. Nature didn't matter. Nurture did. But neuroscience changed everything. Researchers began scanning the brains of convicted killers, and they found something consistent. In psychopathic individuals, not all killers but many, the amygdala functions differently. The amygdala is the brain's alarm system. It's what makes you flinch when you see someone in pain. It's what generates guilt after you've done something wrong. It's what stops most of us from crossing certain lines. In serial killers, that alarm is quieter, sometimes nearly silent. A study out of King's College London found measurable differences in the structure of serial killers' brains, reduced gray matter in regions linked to empathy and moral decision-making. This isn't an excuse, it's an explanation. Because here's what's critical to understand. Psychopathy isn't the same as violence. Most psychopaths never hurt anyone. They become CEOs, surgeons, lawyers. Their emotional detachment can even make them more effective in high-pressure environments. Fantasy escalation. Every serial killer researchers have studied had one thing in common: fantasy. Not the harmless daydreaming most of us do. Something darker, more detailed, more consuming. Violent fantasies often begin in adolescence. And for most people, they stay exactly that: fantasies, uncomfortable thoughts that pass like clouds. But for a small number of individuals, the fantasy doesn't pass, it grows. It becomes a private world they return to again and again. They elaborate it, refine it. They begin to live in it more than they live in the real world. FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood described it as a kind of mental rehearsal. The killer isn't just imagining violence, they're rehearsing it, practicing the details, anticipating the feelings, and with each rehearsal, the threshold lowers. What once felt unthinkable becomes thinkable. What felt impossible starts to feel possible. John Douglas, who interviewed dozens of serial killers, wrote that virtually every one of them described a rich fantasy life that preceded their crimes by years, sometimes decades. Edmund Kemper began fantasizing about killing his mother as a child. He didn't act on it for years. But the fantasy was always there, growing in the background. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer we mentioned at the top, described drawing violent scenes as a child, not because he was abused, but because something in his mind was already pulling him toward dominance and control. He didn't become violent overnight. He rehearsed it internally for years. And when the fantasy wasn't enough anymore, he crossed the line. This is what makes the good home cases so disturbing. The home looked fine. The parents had no idea. Because the real danger wasn't in the house, it was inside their child's head. Consider Jeffrey Dahmer. While his home wasn't perfect, it wasn't the nightmare many expect. He had educated parents, a structured environment, yet inside he felt disconnected, empty. That emotional void turned into obsession. Then violence. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. Not every monster is made by abuse. Some are shaped by something far less visible: their own mind. No scars, no warning signs, just darkness, hiding in plain sight. Can it be prevented? This is the question everyone asks, and it deserves a real answer. Can we stop someone from becoming a killer before they ever harm anyone? The honest answer is sometimes. Early intervention matters. Research consistently shows that children who exhibit certain warning signs, cruelty to animals, fire setting, persistent bedwetting past a certain age, the so-called McDonald triad, though it's been debated and refined since, combined with other behavioral indicators, can benefit from early therapeutic intervention. Not because these behaviors guarantee violence. They don't. Most children who exhibit them grow up to be perfectly normal adults, but they are signals worth paying attention to. Mental health resources matter too. Many of the individuals we've discussed tonight described reaching out or wanting to reach out for help at some point. Dahmer, remarkably, sought psychiatric care. It was inadequate, inconsistent, and ultimately ineffective. Destigmatizing mental illness matters. The person struggling with violent ideation is unlikely to seek help if they fear imprisonment, shame, or abandonment. We need pathways for people to say, I'm having thoughts I can't control. I need help. Without those pathways, the thoughts stay hidden, and they grow. Finally, education matters, teaching people what psychopathy actually is, what warning signs actually look like. Not the Hollywood version, the real version, the quiet one, the functional one, the one that looks like your neighbor. So the next time you hear about a serial killer, don't assume their past explains everything. Because sometimes evil doesn't come from chaos. Sometimes it comes from silence, from secrecy, from within. If you want more deep dives into criminal psychology, hit subscribe, because the truth about crime is always darker than it seems.